Welcome to VMJPod's Employee Brand Series with me, David Macciocca, and co-host Grant O'Donnell. Each episode uncovers bold ideas, real stories, and practical tips from experts reshaping how organizations attract and retain top talent.
Well, welcome to the VMJ Pod. We are unpacking employee branding, recruitment, marketing in this series. I'm David Macciocca.
I'm Grant O'Donnell, and this is Meagan Michaels.
Hi, guys.
Or Michael.
Michaels.
Perfect.
And we're very happy to have you as a guest as the head of employee brand and experience at Bupa. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's get into it. Let's hear a bit about your background and unpack your experience.
Sure. Well, I started my journey in employer brand about 6 or 7 years ago over in London, and I just quit my job in marketing after having a really toxic employee experience, and had nothing sort of on the horizon, and then got a call the next day from a recruitment marketing agency, and because I like money and feeding myself, I was like, yes, I'll come in and have a chat, not sort of knowing what I was getting into, but got the job as a digital strategist, and it was all about helping my clients build their employer brands and build their strategies to attract and retain wonderful talent. And once I got into the industry, just, sort of by chance, I realized that actually it was this great combination of all the things I love about marketing, all the strategy and the technicalities and all that sort of stuff, but also it's about people, and it's about something that's really important to people. It's their jobs. It's where we spend a lot of our time. So we've got to get it right. And after having just had this experience of really not getting it right for myself, I wanted to help other people and help companies find their place. So, and then I decided to move back to Australia with my partner and got the job at Bupa, and I've been there ever since.
Yeah. And how long did you spend in London doing that role?
About 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that the team was a little bit different to what you've experienced in the local market in Australia?
Yeah, it's super different. And I think it's a really interesting thing that I think if you get good pockets of employer brand practice here in Australia and people who really get it and know why it's actually vital to talent acquisition, you've got to have the combo. And then you get pockets where it's like, come in on a project, make us an EVP, great. We'll put a sentence in our job ad and we're done. Versus I think in the UK, it's more established. You're more likely to be able to find a job somewhere, whereas here the jobs are quite rare and very few and far between. And particularly when you're, I think, trying to break into the industry here. If you're sort of younger and up and coming, and what I've sort of experienced when I've been recruiting for my team is that you usually get talent acquisition people coming across to employer brand and then needing to upskill in the marketing, versus what I experienced in the UK, which were marketing talent then transferring their skills across to employer brand. And so I think you get a really different approach then, because you get dyed-in-the-wool marketers, which is what my experience is. I trained as a marketer, versus talent acquisition coming at it from that angle. So you sort of get two different views into employer brand.
Yeah, I can imagine someone who's moving from talent acquisition is probably a little bit more short-term focused because they've been on the hamster wheel. Where's the next person coming through? I need to fill this role. Whereas someone who has an education in marketing is probably thinking much more forward and a bit more strategic. What other differences do you find?
Exactly. And I mean, it does depend on the person, but I think the marketer is more likely to think of the full journey. What are we trying to do? Whereas the talent person tends to think more, as you say, at the upfront piece, like how do we get people in the door, and then it's like, bye. But I think, employer brand and employee experience are just so intrinsically linked. You can't have one without the other, because your employee experience is what you build your employer brand on. but your employer brand, you're bringing people in who are going to impact the employee experience and going to experience the employee experience. And you have to be showing them the reality and making sure that the people that are coming in are going to add to that experience, because then you just strengthen each other, and it should work like that. But if you're coming into a business on a short-term role, and if you're coming in, just to do a part of that journey, obviously you're only going to have a certain amount of success. So things like, how are we impacting retention, and how are we impacting the growth and the tenure that people have at a business? It's hard to do if you're not fully embedded in that. And I think the background that you come into employer brand with can sort of change your view on that. And that's, obviously a huge generalization. But also knowing that you've sort of got that bias is helpful. And I mean, me as a marketer as well, I had to learn all of the systems and all of the technical talent stuff. And I'm still sort of leaning over to my team going, what's this again? Can remind me how this technical part of acquisition works, and trying not to tune out when they get really technical on it, because I'm a marketer and I'm like, cool, what channel are we using?
Yeah.
So you kind of need both, I think.
And when you got that call from the recruiter, were you like, employer brand? What is this?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it just wasn't really, and I, worked in some really niche marketing. Like I'd been doing B2B for aviation, and, I was doing contra marketing back when I was working for a media agency, and like all sorts of different things. And I'd just never come across it as a marketer. But for me, marketing is always about the audience, and how do we reach them? How do we talk to them? What do they need to know to come on this journey with us? So it doesn't matter what kind of marketing you're doing. If you understand your audience, you can do it. But there are technical talent things that I've had to learn along the way, and that's been really good fun. And the deeper I get into it, the more you just sort of have to have both sides of those coins and learn both of them to be successful, I think.
Mm. So one of the things we're going to be talking about today, the theme is, I suppose in summary, putting the recruiters in great conversations with A-grade talent, maybe B-grade talent, and probably trying to look to repel the C-grade talent, which is a challenge, isn't it? So say someone within employee brand is pretty content with their EVP. They've got their statement and pillars, and it's washed through, and it's kind of neat, and they're looking for the next stage to really impact the candidate journey. I'm really curious to know your experience and how you think about from first click, awareness, all the way through to offer and hire and that journey. Is Bupa thinking about that?
Yeah, definitely. And we're doing it in a few different ways. And Bupa's quite a big, complex beast. So we've got a lot of different audience types and a lot of different ways we need to talk to them. So
and people know you as well. Your consumer brand is so strong. So I'm assuming there's a perception of what it's like.
Yeah, it's actually it's too strong. It's a massive problem for us, which is a nice problem to have. But people think of us as just health insurance. So the job we need to do is to help people to understand that we're more than that. And particularly as we move more clearly into the healthcare space, we want to help people see us as healthcare and not just health insurance.
Nice. And I'm assuming that there's some serious perks working at Bupa from a healthcare perspective, and that might attract certain types.
Yeah, definitely. But I think
is that a good thing, or do you always want to be communicating the perks to attract talent?
I don't think so. I don't think the perks are actually quite the right audience for us. The people that are like, okay, what's the hygiene? What's the give and the get? Because for Bupa, actually, and when we do our EVP research, we've just done it again to sort of revalidate what we had in market. And the thing that consistently comes back without prompting is that people are with us because of our purpose. And that's such a cool thing. That's cool. Not having to sort of but the purpose guys. No, that's just what they say.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, and going back to that really diverse audience, it shows up in every role just in a different way. So, you're a registered nurse in an aged care home, purpose is really tangible, it's in your hands. But if you're in, say, a tech role, your purpose is, you're the kind of person that wants to come in and change the world. And what better way to change the world than through healthcare? That's something that's so vital to people's lives. So we get really passionate, interesting people because of that. And that's the thing that we can attract on. And the challenge for us is then how do we attract with the breadth as well, and the breadth of that opportunity that you can have. So a registered nurse could start in an aged care home, but then they could go and work in one of our medical centres, or they could go into a leadership role, they could go into a health advisor role. So being able to make that purposeful impact across so many different spaces, that's the cool stuff.
But when do you find is the right time to communicate that message when someone from like apply through to offer and hire? Is that?
I think it's kind of got to be the drumbeat at every point. And
Okay.
as a big brand as well, with so many different levers to pull on, we have to be careful not to pull them all. And so we find that we're usually more successful if we say less but more consistently. And so when we sort of nail in on what's the thing that's going to really capture people and capture the people that come in and are successful at Bupa, it's that message of, come in and make an impact in all these different places. And we keep saying that at every point. And yeah, obviously we're all humans and we need to, at the end of the day, have the conversation about like, okay, well, what's the office like, and, how much are you paying me and all that kind of stuff, of course. But that really, for the kind of people that are the most successful at Bupa, that's the conversation you have right at the end. And that's just the kind of thing that gets them across the line, not the thing that gets them there in the first place.
Okay.
I can see your face going,
No. I mean, obviously, there's always a level of the hygiene around it. I think it's awesome that it's also, I guess, a benefit of being in the healthcare industry, right? It's not coming up with a purpose that sounds grandiose, that you're joining this thing and, yes, make an impact and you're going to change the world. And you're like, no, this is legitimate.
Yeah, like I'm selling socks or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, like whoever, like if you've ever put on a new pair of socks, I mean, it is life-changing.
It is. But yeah, I think one of the parts that I guess sort of, David's sort of getting to here as well around is, the level of complication of how you layer in the messages and at what point so that everyone can absorb that, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like any sort of marketing funnel, you sort of have to go out and go, well, here's the message we've got, let's test it, see who's responding, get more people that look like that and bring them sort of slowly down that consideration funnel. And I think for us, consideration is always the most challenging part of the funnel because it's sort of the widest in terms of what you need to do. Like how many points do you need people to come back and think about, what else and why?
Do you want them to apply or do you want them to take another avenue, like join a community or are there different options that you're thinking about putting people in when you're I suppose it's talent pooling, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, it depends on the audience and it depends on the approach that we're going for. So if it's a new audience for us, like in our medical centres, for example, we know that, to your point, we've got a really strong brand, but they don't think of us as a healthcare company. And so we have to do the work right at the top of the funnel to convince them that, yeah, actually, like we have a lot of experience. We actually have a massive health services business that is just, you've probably walked past a Bupa Dentical or a Bupa Optical and just sort of not really thought about it because you think of it as health insurance. But actually we employ loads and loads of clinicians. So we have quite a big right to play in that space. We just need to convince people of that because they tend to think of us. And actually the other challenge we have is because we are health insurance, people tend to overlook our purpose and they tend to overlook that sort of side of our industry because I think, particularly with America and the media so much at the moment, are we going to be just an evil healthcare corporation? Of course not. But, we have to do the work and the due diligence to help people to understand that.
So with the difference in job families, are you getting really meta with your candidate experience and messaging?
We're trying to. It's hard though. It's really hard because we are very geographically dispersed as well. So the candidate and the employee experience that you'll have in an aged care home, totally different to what you'd have as a developer in our head office. So
how do you think about that as head of employee brand, someone who's looking to impact the candidate experience?
yeah, it's such a boring answer, but consistency and where we can bring in
Not
consistency.
boring. You think that's boring? Great.
No, it's not boring. I'm also interested, I guess, building off that of the education process for internally as well.
Yeah, that's a tough one too. And again, because we're so big and there's so many people involved in this conversation, and I think it sort of goes back to what we were saying earlier around employer brand, is that we sort of almost have to be internal PR for ourselves as well to remind people that employer brand is really important. And we're an important part of the employee experience as well. And I mean, Bupa have an employee experience team, and the employer brand team used to sit there.
Okay.
And then we moved across to talent acquisition. And I think that's much more common that we sit in a talent acquisition team or closer to that. Or you might find us sitting in marketing or something. I think it's can be different depending on the organisation.
Did you move from that candidate experience team into it? Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Why don't we unpack that? No, seriously, that's kind of interesting. That's, what are the benefits of sitting in the candidate experience team versus talent acquisition?
It's been
Or is there a focus change?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So when I first joined Bupa, I actually came in on a contract, and they were like, can you just sort of assess where we're at and what we should do next? Because they had a little bit of EVP work done, and they had a really nice brand that they'd created. What do we do with this now? And their focus had been on how do we activate it internally. I was like, well, stop doing that and start activating it externally. And built them did an audit for them, built them a strategy, and said, here's what it is. And it's going to take you years because there's so much stuff to do.
What? Were they shocked?
Oh, they were horrified. But secured myself a job. No.
They're like, is this the answer we wanted?
Yeah. But, we're doing it, and that's exciting. But the employee experience team, it was really easy to focus on, okay, well, what we need to think about the critical moments that people are going to have on this journey when we attract them into the business. So how do we impact recruitment? How do we impact learning and development? How do we impact culture? How do we, et cetera, et cetera. And so because we were sitting in that space, it was really easy to be in those conversations because everybody else was already having those conversations around us. Every team meeting was about, hey, I'm doing this over here in ops. Like, cool, can we come and play with you over there? Whereas in talent acquisition, it's a much more narrow focus on get people in the door and do it that part as well as possible. And trying to then access those conversations because they're less organic, it's just that little bit harder and there's a little bit more of a barrier. And I think...
Is it easier to track working with within talent acquisition that want people immediately? In terms of conversion, if you're impacting the experience within talent acquisition and they're desperate, is there a conversation to be had to say, well, by us doing these activities, we can impact the candidate journey? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the conversations that we're having. But I would say, and I don't know if this is just my perception and sort of what I've seen, but there's a little bit of a tendency to go, well, when things are going well in the business, it's everybody else, every other team that's been successful. But when things are going poorly, it's talent acquisition that aren't doing their job properly. So we get a little bit of that as well.
Splashback.
Yeah. And I think I guess that for me is where employer brand sitting in talent acquisition feels a bit risky.
Really?
Yeah. Because when it's not going well, which is, it's not the fault of the talent acquisition team. It's a tough market at times. And, when you're pivoting as a business, it's even tougher. But because we're also marketing, and marketing's that kind of in any function, in any business, marketing is kind of do we really need this? We definitely need sales, but do we need marketing right now? Let's get it back later. So I think it makes our jobs a little bit riskier because employer brand marketing, talent marketing, is even further down the food chain. So we really have to sing for our supper and really have to show that return on investment. And that PR piece becomes even more important, but harder because we're sitting further away from it. So
less tangible for the broader business to understand how you're measuring, impacting success.
yeah.
I would sort of also sort of say, and I guess you've sort of seen it in this organisation and maybe swapping from different teams, is it impacted based on how the talent acquisition team is perceived as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, it's a good thing that we do that, you know, we're all one team and we're all working towards the same thing. But at the same time, you know, we're all one team and we are all viewed as one team. So, you know, everybody's got to push forward. Otherwise, you know, we're measured against our weakest player kind of thing.
This episode is brought to you by Video My Job, introducing the fastest way to turn employee stories into multi-channel content. One video now instantly becomes branded blogs, quote cards, social posts, and more, all perfectly formatted for the channels you use to attract and engage talent. And the best part, zero editing required. Record once, repurpose everywhere. Book your demo at videomyjob.com and experience the new era of employee content creation.
Is it a bit about once you've built something, it's locked in and then you're going after the next thing? And because it's been built, then it's like it's done. What else is there to do?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I was like, the tangent in my brain where I sort of went then was because for Bupa, one of our ambitions is to be the most customer-centric healthcare company in the world. And when most people talk about that, they're talking about ensuring that our customers have the best possible experience with our products. But because we are shifting our focus more to be a healthcare company, our product is people. It's the experience you have with a registered nurse. It's the experience you have with a GP. So for me, talent acquisition and the whole team, the employee brand, everything is vital to that because we've got to get the right people to create the right product. But I don't know that that's necessarily universally understood because if you're in a healthcare part of the business, you're looking at the product as let's make this health insurance product the best possible thing. But, you know, it's not always just as simple as that.
So
Simple.
there's some incredible employee branders all around the world and it seems like there's a bit of a theme where people are moving in from employee brand into internal comms. You're sort of pushing in that direction, sort of saying there's a bit of inconsistency with messaging internally. What can you see how employee brand, or are you impacting internal comms?
We find that really hard
Okay.
internally. Our internal comms is, because we're such a massive business, we have a lot to say. And our global CEO is so, he's got a lot of things that he wants us to be working towards. He's really bold. So our internal comms tends to be, you know, those really big ticket items and those really big projects that are happening globally. And so it's actually really hard to get airspace. And then the other thing that impacts it for us is again that that complex workforce where we have, if you're working in an aged care home, you don't have access to a laptop, you don't have a phone because you don't need one. You're on the floor with your patients. So the vast majority of our workforce actually they're unwired. They don't have, you know, they're not on the social thing and they're not, you know, they see information through a poster on the notice board or what their leader tells them. So a lot of our comms is leader-led and that's people, and people are it's a really fallible and really delicate system. So as soon as someone's busy, the last thing on their mind is to talk to them about, you know, what we're doing over an employer brand. You know, you want to talk about the big ticket items, the things that are going to impact people's day to day. So it's really challenging. And I don't know how to solve it. But it does make a big impact as well.
Being a big business, internal mobility, we're sort of going in a few directions, aren't we?
Yeah.
But I could see the benefit of getting it right impacting on internal mobility,
Yes.
which is then impacting on talent acquisition metrics.
Well,
I'm assuming it's easier to find people internally as opposed to getting.
Yeah, but again, I mean, it comes down to, and like this is the employee experience thing all over again.
Totally.
Because, yeah, like internal comms, how do you get information to people? And if people are unwired, how do you get them onto the systems that help them to get that mobility? And how do you do it in a way that feels equitable for everybody? Because it's, it is actually easier for someone in a care home to get a job externally because they can go on Seek and go and get that job. Whereas I've got to log into the system. What's my email again? And blah, blah, blah. So how do we remove those barriers and how do we make those moments, those really critical moments in retaining people and in them having a good experience and delivering on the stuff that we promise externally? How do we make that as seamless and as consistent as we can across the business? And that's, for me, the big challenge and the big unlock. And even, visually, how do we make it feel the same? Like, Bupa is a big brand. We should be recognizable. But when you've got, 7 different internal comms teams doing different parts of the business, and you've got culture, and you've got risk people that need to communicate to you as well, and all these different people communicating to you, it's naturally going to start being a bit unwieldy and a bit different, and you don't really know what you're looking at some of the time. And then you tune out because it's not easy, and your brain goes, I can't recognize this pattern. Shut down.
And to your point earlier, you're trying to get consistency, but to execute on consistency across so many different channels, so many different internal teams, so many different audiences, is that a complex picture on the wall?
Nah, it's easy. It's so easy.
Just huge matrix, shift this here, that over there.
Yeah, it's really hard. So you have to, I think, be embedded with so many different teams as well, which is something that I think historically we've done pretty well at Bupa. We tend to be surprisingly scrappy internal. We're very, and one of the things actually sort of got reinforced by our recent research is that despite the fact that we're a massive global business, we do feel really local and we do feel really like personal. So that's sort of how we work internally as well, that, hey, we're doing a thing, let's get the OD team involved, let's call up internal comms, and they're really willing to help out and get in there. But yeah, even with all of our best intentions, it's still complex and it's still a challenge.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it is an overwhelming thing as well. Like, you can, do that exact thing. Look at it and go like, oof, yeah, somebody else's problem, please, because it's hard. But yeah.
And it sounds like a lot of your time, I mean, obviously you're thinking of the end audience, but for people internally to understand this, there's got to be a massive amount of your time dedicated to just making things happen internally.
Yeah, just and it comes back to that PR piece. And particularly when I started at Bupa, like, without joking, about a third of my role was just rocking up in people's team meetings and being like, hey guys, this is what we're doing. This is why it matters. Come on the journey with us. And even if it's like, there's nothing for you to do, there's nothing for you to contribute, just know that this is what we're doing and this is why it's important. And that made a big difference. That made it a lot easier for us to, way up to the point of getting, we're in the strategy and it's a really clear marker of the business's success that we do our bit properly. And like at the time, I was a team of 1. Like that's
I was just going to go there. Like, it's really good advice for anyone who's starting a new role because it is about making connections and building those relationships. So your advice is just to sit in meetings and listen and tell them what matters and why it matters and
absolutely.
what you're up to.
And like coming from that agency experience as well, like it was a really good skill set to sort of come in with because you have to be curious when you're working in an agency. You're with different clients every day and you've got to get into the habit of asking them all of these questions that help you get the brief right as quickly as possible. So same thing, you get into a meeting with all of these different people and you've got to get the brief from them and you've got to understand what's challenging in your space, what impacts you and your talent and your team, and how does that make a difference to the business, and start asking those questions. And when you're early on in a role, it's the perfect time to do it because you can sort of go in with that level
curious.
and people are much more willing to sort of go like, respond to things like, hey, I'm new, can you help me out? Like, I just want to have a quick chat. And they'll be like, yeah, sure, And it was a really big part of how I built the strategy as well. You know, I've spoken to all of these people. I understand the problem, and this is how we solve it.
I feel like I could talk to Meagan for much longer. You got any last questions, Grant?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot. Unless there's maybe some other parts that you want to share or reflect on. What are you thinking about for the future? Any sort of, things on the horizon you might want to lay out there?
Yeah, well, that that big unwieldy piece of how we get that consistency across our employee experience is what we're working on at the moment. At the same time as refreshing our EVP, refreshing our brand ID, making a new career site. So we're pretty quiet. It's pretty chilled. But it's
all the small items.
Yeah, but I would definitely say, as to my fellow employee brand professionals, I think, and the thing that I feel really strongly about is that link between employer brand and employee experience, I think, is the thing that gives us longevity in our roles. And, going back to my experience in starting out in the UK, and employer brand roles are much more common and they're, really embedded in businesses. I'd like to see that for us here in the Aussie market. I'd like there to be more opportunity to be in this space. And I think it's important for businesses. I think, if you're a business listening and you don't have employer brand, you need it. It's vital.
I'm optimistic about the sector. I really am, because there are so many benefits, and it really is growing.
Yeah.
It has been growing. It is a mushroom. It's continually, it will pop up. Even more so when times get a little bit tough. Talent acquisition is scrambling across all skill sets to attract talent and then to retain the talent.
Definitely.
Because that's where you make a massive impact.
Yeah. And, as we head deeper into the world of AI,
She mentioned the word AI.
I'm sorry, AI. Shh. We promised we weren't going to say the words. The technology that shall not be named, that the candidate experience is going to be even more important, right? And that's where your employee brand comes in. So I think, start thinking about that now if you haven't already.
I think that's a great way to end the episode. I really appreciate your time. It's been
Thanks
wonderful
for the chat.
having
It's
a
fun.
conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
Cool.
Anytime.